All right, we want to take a closer look now at what happened last night in Iowa. Now, traditionally, the Iowa caucus results provide the first concrete tally after months of speculation about the presidential primary. Joining me now from Des Moines is Alexandra Jaffe. She is national political reporter for the Associated Press. Alexandra, thanks a lot for coming on. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Alexandra, Democratic Party officials say that we will get a majority of the caucus results this evening. Can we talk about the pressure those officials have been under to report last night's outcome?
Absolutely. It's been extraordinary pressure, not just from the media and the public, but also from these campaigns that expected to have the Iowa caucus results last night to kick off the rest of the primary season and head into New Hampshire with some momentum. Around 9 p.m. last night, we started to realize that things were going wrong. We expected results at that point and they weren't coming. And the IDP wasn't really giving us much information. So there were a lot of calls into Democratic Party officials, a lot of speculation. None of that was cleared up until recently this morning. They came out publicly and said that they had issues with the reporting app.
The Democratic candidates, as we mentioned, now physically moved on to New Hampshire. That said, a lot of questions remain in Iowa because of that new mobile app that was used and supposed to help in reporting the results. Can you tell us a little bit more what went wrong there and why was there so much confusion last night?
Sure. It seems like there were issues from both the front end and the back end. So the precinct captains that were supposed to use this app to report back to the IDP their results, they weren't trained on it. Half of them said they weren't aware of it, they couldn't use it, they couldn't sign in. And then when they tried to report those results, they got error messages. Then on the IDP end of things, we were hearing from the Democratic Party that they weren't receiving the data in sort of a full way. They were getting sort of partial numbers or numbers that didn't add up. So at the end of the day, it wasn't working on either end, and they've had to check all of the results against paper results to make sure that everything has been accurate.
And with those official results, I know candidates resorted to their own messaging last night. Joe Biden, Bernie Sanders, along with Pete Buttigieg, all sounded like they were declaring victory. What kind of fallout do you expect that we'll see in the coming days?
Well, that's the thing. If every candidate declares victory, no candidate can declare victory. So at this point, the Iowa caucus results look like they're pretty much a moot point for a lot of the campaigns. We're going to sort of look at them as water under the bridge, and we'll have to look to New Hampshire for the first real sign of who has momentum in this race.
Yeah, and this latest snafu is just adding to criticisms that perhaps maybe the Iowa caucus process is no longer the way to go. Some top Democrats have also expressed concern that the demographic, that is, makeup in Iowa, doesn't really accurately reflect the rest of the country. What are you hearing there in the state?
Sure. As you mentioned, that's been going on for quite a while, but it's a debate that happens just about every 4 years when we have a caucus because there's always issues with this process. This year, it seems particularly pointed as there is this overarching debate within the Democratic Party about representation and diversity. And honestly, every Democrat I talk to about the caucuses says they think this was its death knell, the sort of nail in the coffin for the caucuses, and that we won't see another caucus going forward.
Yeah, quickly, we talked about New Hampshire. The primary is now a week away. There's also another debate Friday night. What kind of impact could that have ahead of next Tuesday?
Well, that's the thing. If we have no caucus results to really go off of, then that is the next biggest contest for Democrats to be all on the same stage together, and probably the first time that a lot of New Hampshire voters will be tuning into the race. So just 4 days before voters go to the polls, it's going to have a huge impact on their decision-making process.
Okay, thank you, Alexandra, for your insight. Alexandra Jaffe, national political reporter for the Associated Press. Thanks again for your insights.